AB 1676 will continue California's progress toward achieving pay equity for women by ensuring that prior salary is not used to diminish women's earnings in future jobs. We have one of the largest pay gaps in the nation for African American and the largest pay gap in the nation for Latinas. They make, for African Americans, and in fact, today is African American Equal Pay Day, which means that it has taken until today for African American women to make what white men made in 2015. This measure, and for Latinas, it's 43 cents. For African American women, 63 cents for every dollar a man makes. One of the biggest hurdles women face in closing the gender gap is the fact that once a woman starts in a job where she's underpaid, it is extremely difficult for her to even catch up. In order to change this dynamic, employers should not rely on prior salary to set an employee's wages. This is a serious problem that this bill attempts to address. This measure will strengthen the California Equal Pay Act, which I was honored to carry and which every member of this legislature supported back last year. It will strengthen it by making clear to employers and employees that prior salary cannot be used to justify a gap in wages between men and women doing substantially similar work. And to avoid 4.5 minutes of speaking, I will just simply ask for your aye vote.
And thank you. Any discussion or debate on the measure? Senator Anderson.
Quick question of the floor manager.
Will you take a question, Senator Jackson?
Certainly.
Great, without objection.
I am supporting this bill, and I supported it, I believe, in an earlier version that included the state legislature. And now I believe the state legislature has been removed from the bill. Is that correct?
The current language in the bill is a compromise that was landed on late in the process. Adding the legislature is, of course, an important step that has to be given serious consideration and should be done in follow-up legislation or through internal reform.
On my own time, Senators, that's the problem. We keep talking a great game. We keep saying that we want to make women equal. But then when it comes to this body and to the assembly, we use a double standard. I'm outraged, and you all should be outraged, that women don't get a fair shake on this floor. And that's wrong. It was wrong for them to be pulled out of this bill. I'm going to vote for it because it's primarily good, and it's a small step in the right direction. But I'm tired of people wrapping themselves in a flag saying they want equality when they're not willing to fight for that equality. Women should be paid the same rate for the same job. And anything short of that is wrong. So I'm still urging an aye vote, but let's just do it with our eyes open and not to a blind eye to this legislature who fails to support women.
Senator Leyva.
Thank you, Madam President. To the great senator from San Diego, I rise to bring you fabulous news. The Rules Committee has been working on the pay equity issue in the Senate for, gosh, probably the last 6 months. We should have some resolution to bring to all of you very soon, but it is something that we have taken very seriously. And it's difficult when you have a large body and things have happened that are out of the control sometimes. Each one of us is an employer, and how we choose to pay people might be different. So it has been hard to take that data, bring it together, and figure out how we move forward. But it has been done, and we should have some great progress to report to you soon. So happy days ahead.
Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I just want to echo the comments from the Senator from Chino. Actually, in the Senate, we pay 94 cents on the dollar with regards to women. And after an exhaustive, in-depth study, looking at the data, we're actually going to be making some, I think, some comprehensive changes very, very soon, where we'll actually make a substantial improvement on that 94 cents on the dollar in comparison to what happens in the private sector with regards to Latina women, who I think get 44 cents on the dollar, and black women, African-American women, who get about 54, 55 cents on the dollar, and other women who get roughly about 78, 85 cents on the dollar. So we're going to make considerable improvement. I think we've been doing it so in a very collective, bipartisan fashion without any need to grandstand and, get on a soapbox and demand in an emotional, impassioned manner. A lot of it has to do with the old vestiges of the old guard of this legislative institution, both the Senate as well as the Assembly, when they wanted to only hire men, and primarily, quite frankly, white men. And that has been decades and decades, and this is what has built up with regards to the gap that exists between women of all ethnicities and men in general in this legislative institution. But collectively, in a bipartisan fashion in the Senate Rules Committee, Democrats and Republicans, we're actually making much headway and improvements, and I think that a lot of folks are going to be very happy about that.
Thank you, and Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to respond to the senator from Chino Hills, it sounds like it was just too complicated in order to effectuate making sure that men and women get equal pay in the state legislature. Can you imagine being a part of a Fortune 500 company that has multiple departments and thousands of women and thousands of men and what they have to go through? I fully support this bill, but I think it's very hypocritical that we would exclude the legislature. Why not lead from the top and make our departments, our legislature, comply with the laws that we expect everybody else to comply with? Why should a legislative assistant, female in my office, make less than a male in somebody else's office or vice versa? It's often that government makes rules for everybody else but doesn't want to follow the rules themselves. We see it at the top of the food chain in the federal government. We have this plan called Obamacare, but members of Congress have exempted themselves from Obamacare. We sit here and we say that women should be paid the same as men, but we exempt the institution that can make that happen statewide. So I stand with my friend from San Diego and say it's just hypocritical that we would stand here today as a legislature and allow this bill to move forward and exempting the state legislature from the same rules we expect to apply to everybody else. I'm going to vote for it, but I think it's appalling, and I think it's disrespectful to women that serve full-time here in the legislature. They deserve to be paid the same as men. And you know what? I think we have the power on this floor to amend this bill if we choose to do so today. So I'm asking, Madam President, being new to the legislature, I don't know how these things happen, but if you stand for women in the state legislature and believe they should make the same thing as men in the state legislature and our staffs, then please join me and let's do an amendment, and let's ensure by statute that we stand behind what we say and we do what we expect the private sector to do in recognizing the equal pay provisions for women equitable to men. Here in the state legislature and here throughout the state of California, Mr. Pro Tem, I don't know the procedure for doing that, but I would like senators to rise if they agree with me.
To provide clarification to you, Senator Stone, the rules of the Senate with regard to amending bills is they have to be in writing and they have to be in RN form before they can be taken up by the body as a whole.
May I respond?
Sure.
Thank you, Madam. What have we done all week long, my friends? We changed the rules. The majority party does it all the time. So why don't we put off a vote? Let's put this on call, and I'll go write the letter, and I'll submit it. And stand with every woman here in the legislature. Stand with every woman here. 360,000 people work in our bureaucracy. Let's ensure that women get paid the same as the men, and then go to the private sector and say, the public sector did it first. Now we expect you to follow suit. I'm pleading with you for your consideration. This is very, very important. I stood with the great senator from Santa Barbara when she brought forward this wonderful legislation that was a bipartisanly approved. We can do the same thing, my friends. Let's make history here today. Let's not exclude anyone. Let's set the rule by example by not exempting our employees. Our women are just as valuable as any women in any other industry in the state of California. Let's stand by them today, and let's amend this bill, and let's do it right.
Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and no need to plead, and perhaps I didn't enunciate or articulate well enough. I know I was a former English language learner at one time, so maybe my English is not as coherent as it can be. Again, in a bipartisan spirit, in a bipartisan manner, in the Senate Rules Committee, Democrats and Republicans, we have looked at the data, and we're going to make incredible advances. I think we also collectively made history yesterday when we passed overtime for farm workers who have been denied since 1938 what is right. I think we made history there. So there's no need, I believe, to grandstand on this issue. I think it's very clear. You should understand the rules and procedures and how to process any amendments. But I will, for the senator from Riverside, I will give an extra look and scrutinize his staff specifically if he needs any help or support. So I will do that. I'll give you my word. I will scrutinize your office more personally.
Senator Anderson?
So is that, I have a question on procedure.
Go ahead.
If we were on a 2/3 vote, would we have the ability to change this on a 2/3 vote with perhaps a rules change, or how, is there a way that we could get there today? Because clearly we have a time limit and I want to be reasonable with it, but I think that when you compare farm workers to women, I don't think women want farm workers to get lesser pay. I just think that women want equal pay. And I think that while we've made great strides this week for labor in many ways, that shouldn't diminish women's equal rights to equal pay for equal work. And, I know that I'm very pleased that we're looking at this seriously and moving forward, but at the end of the day, aren't women always given excuses of why they can't be treated equally? So I'm wondering, is there something that we can do procedurally on a 2/3 vote to address this inequity?
Let me cite the rule if you could. Okay, thank you. We're trying to find the rule because I'm going to read it to you verbatim, Senator, so everyone is clear.
I don't want to hold you up, so if we need to move forward, but perhaps
Let me tell you what the rule is, and then we're going to look it up, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim. It's Joint Rule 61B16, which says that we are currently past the last day to amend on the floor. And again, if we're going to amend on the floor, it requires that the amendments be written and in ledge council form.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you looking into that. Thank you.
Any further discussion or debate or need for clarification on process? Seeing none, Senator Jackson, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam President. I am so pleased to see my Republican colleagues standing up for women. Glad that they're finally coming on board. We are taking great strides. Is this perfect? Absolutely not. But last year, the Women's Caucus led the way with equal pay. This year, the Women's Caucus is leading the way with trying to address some of those additional inequities. We will continue leading the way, and it is my hope and delight to hear that my Republican colleagues will be joining us when we continue to fight for women's equality, for reproductive control over their own bodies, and other things which will allow us to be equal participants and treated equally in our society. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote.